DIRT TRAX TV is sponsored by Polaris, think outside. Can-Am, follow your path. Yamaha, revs your heart. And by Honda Power Sports, power your dreams, whatever the terrain.
My story with the Honda ATV goes back to 30 years ago. I was 18 months old when my parents would wrap me in blankets and lay me down on the fuel tank of my father's old 200 ATC. We would head out to the wood every weekend during the wintertime in the local ATV club here. I can't remember those early days, but it was like that for all of my childhood during the 90s. Here in St. Quentin, it's a small community here, pretty isolated from any major city. During the wintertime especially, there wasn't much to do unless you play hockey or any sports, but I wasn't really into any kind of sports. So my dad only had an ATC. When I was born, traded the ATC for 2 ATVs, so he would have one carrying me and my mom would have the other one carrying a sister. I mean, everybody would follow. My grandfather had one, my uncle had one. Over the years, when he bought this first 350, we would take that machine out for riding every weekend, plow the driveway at home with it, and he kept that bike until 2011. You turn the key, you get on it, and it's very little maintenance needed. There were no rubber engine mount back then. It was all metal on metal, so you could feel the vibration, and you can actually feel the engine torque inside of it. Maybe the suspension wasn't the greatest back then, but the old DIRT TRAX, not the fastest, not the most powerful, but you just get a feeling that you wouldn't get on other bikes. So that DIRT TRAX 350 really left a mark. I started a job at the grocery store. I was 16 years old. When I had enough money, I went to my dad and I asked him if he would sell me the 350. DIRT TRAX. He said, you got a job now, you make enough money, you're gonna take that bike out to ride every weekend of the year. He said, go ahead and buy a brand new bike. And that kind of took me by surprise back then. I started looking out on the internet what model Honda made at the time, because obviously it was gonna be a Honda, no questioning there. The Rincon was labeled as a trail bike back then, so the only one available with the independent suspension, that was it for me. I wasn't looking for a crazy horsepower machine, or I just wanted something to get out there and ride. I bought my Rincon back in 2009. It was pretty much the same time I got my driver's license, and owning a car was none of my priorities back then, because I had my bike and I was able to do pretty much everything there was to do here in town. You could do it on an ATV. Plus you could head out to the woods, which you could not with a car. That was my everyday travel machine. I would use it to go to work after school during the weekend, and every time I had a chance, there was a new place to go and explore and find where the trail would lead me. On the first year I got the bike, I probably a little bit more than 10,000 kilometers on it. That was about the same time my friend Jean-Guy came in the story, probably close to 60 years old at the time, but he had a similar passion to riding as I did, and also he drove a logging truck in the 70s, so he knew all the logging roads. So every Saturday we would meet up at the restaurant for breakfast at 7 a.m., the bike's fully loaded, and we would head out to the woods and sometimes come back at midnight, 1 a.m., done 300-400 kilometers every weekend. And it was like that for 6-7 years. Every Saturday, it was the Saturday ride, the mileage kept climbing up. I averaged 10,000 kilometers a year for the first 10 years. So obviously, as the mileage was climbing up, things were wearing out. I needed the bike to be working every Saturday, not to miss a ride. So every now and then I would get the ATV in the shed, lift it up and check to make sure everything was tight under it to be ready for the next ride. But the Rincon sure held up as good as the old DIRT TRAX I grew up on. It was a turn the key and ready to go machine. Very little maintenance was needed. I think the first repair I did on the ATV was at 8,000 kilometers, was a wheel bearing. And the first, if I would say major repairs, was the suspension bushing, and it was over 20,000 kilometers. That bike required extremely little maintenance other than oil change and cleaning out the air filters. That would left me a lot more time to ride, maybe other bikes. So starting back in 2009 when I got the bike, every reason was good to go out and ride. There was always somebody ready to ride somewhere, go try a new trail or explore a new place. The mileage kept climbing at 10,000 kilometers the first year, and after 10 years, I reached 100,000 kilometers. And I remember along the way, people were asking me, when are you gonna trade a bike? Where do you want to get your mileage at? The only answer I could give him is when I'm gonna stop riding, because the machine's there, it's ready. I've done some repairs to it. It was always worth it. The bike's 15 years old and it's still an amazing bike to me. So why would I change to something else? It's done the job great and it's still doing it. The way you're seated on the suspension, the handling, the weight of the bike also, it's a pretty lightweight for the engine size. It makes a different ride compared to some of the bigger ATVs out there. Maybe not as smooth, but you get a sense of connection. You get a good reaction of the machine on the terrain. You get good feedback. You want to ride more aggressively, you know where you're at every moment. There's no sense of disconnection. So when you're riding over 300 kilometers on a single day, it can be hard on your back. One of the upgrades I did on the Rincon was putting on ELEVENTH stage 4 shocks, and that really turned a good trail machine in a trail eating machine, if I could say. The suspension geometry is pretty great on a Rincon for a bike, considering dating back to the early 2000s. It really makes the steering easy. EPS is not available on the Rincon, but I don't think it's a necessity to have it. Sure, it might be good to have as an option for certain conditions. Let's say put tracks on the bike, working, got it heavily loaded on the front rack, it's gonna make steering harder, but for normal use as a trail bike, the steering is easy enough not to have it. So over the years, I've tried other bikes, bigger ones, and those really needed power steering. So when I got off of them and back on the Rincon, it felt almost like it had power steering. So people will ask me over the years why I bought a Honda instead of other brands, more impressive specs compared to the Rincon, but it's the detail, how everything's put together and works as it should. Quality of the component, more power is fun, but more power will wear things out faster. So that lightweight, well-built machine, it's a Honda, gonna do the job. That's how you make an ATV last 100,000 kilometers. When you got that passion about riding, you want a machine that's ready to get there and get you back home. That's another part of it. So I've seen breakdowns on the trails over the years. Unfortunately, I was rarely one of them. So that's one thing I appreciate about a Honda is the trust you can have in the machine, that it's gonna get you there and back.
DIRT TRAX is sponsored by Princess Auto. Make it work.
DIRT TRAX TV. They kind of surprised me by having Honda make the new Rubicon 700 available for me to try out on the trails here, having a comparison made with my old Rincon. I had the chance to ride both and compare. I was glad to see that Honda kept what was good of the Rincon. Driving it, you still get that connection feeling on the bike, feedback from the terrain, easy handling, the suspension, the balance of the bike. It kind of helped me understand why maybe EPS was not available. I still don't see it as a necessity, even though it would be nice to have it as an option. 90% of the time, you won't need it. The Rubicon or the Rincon were trail bikes. They were not necessarily meant to work, and even if you're riding it aggressively, you get a good feedback from the steering. But there might be some times, when you're deep rut or something, that EPS might save you some hard kicks from the steering. You get used to it. You can live without the drivetrain. What they improved is it's the same 3-speed transmission, but they've tuned it differently, and they've really fixed some of the glitches there was with my previous Rincon model. You would get to a point when in automatic where you would need a quick downshift, then upshift, and the transmission would just either downshift and stays there for too long before realizing you need to upshift. It didn't happen to me when I tried the Rubicon 700. The initial engagement of the transmission when you take off is smoother. The shift change is smoother. As far as power goes, does seem to have more power on the top end. So one of the other changes they did to the Rubicon is a new meter, which is, I think, better lit up than the previous one. They changed the angle. I was a bit suspicious about it because it's more angled toward the sky, worrying about the reflection. But as I was riding it, I realized that gets you a better view whether you're riding the bike sitting down or standing up. Plus, that new meter is now showing the RPMs, engine temperature, and battery voltage, which were not shown in the older Rincons. So that's all useful information when you're riding. Worry about something, you'll know whether it's working or not. The most noticeable one, of course, is that top headlight. It's pretty bright and it works amazing in combination with those warmer lower lights. Of course, that additional storage up front, the new plastics. Somehow, when you're riding the bike, it almost feels like it's smaller than the older Rincon. It almost looks like you're riding a Rancher. So for anyone considering buying a new bike, I mean, that Rubicon 700 you can purchase without any worries. Having seen what I saw on my Rincon, it's well built, it's well put together, and the quality of the component, it's gonna be a lasting machine if you take care of it and use it properly. That's an ATV that's gonna last many, many thousand miles. Having done 126,000 kilometers on my Rincon, not easy kilometers, and with the little maintenance I had to do on it, I don't see why that new Rubicon would be anything less than that. If anyone would ask me if I had any worries, I'd have to say no, because I got the proof that it's going to be a reliable bike. It's going to do what it's supposed to do, and it's going to do it for a long time. It's gonna be a great bike for anyone who likes to do a lot of mileage.
DIRT TRAX has been sponsored by Kawasaki. Let the good times roll. MBRP Performance Exhaust, built for the victory lap. And by Hercules Tire. Ride on our strength.
Welcome back to the Trail Tech Shop, and a place where I'm going to do a build like I have never done before. So yes, I have installed parts like these before, but I've never done it on an all-electric side-by-side. So come along with me as I turn this Kinetic Ultimate into the Ultimate Snow Removal side-by-side. Now, I've had a lot of folks who've seen my praise for the Kinetic place a question in the chamber of their anti-electric gun and point it directly at me, expecting to shoot down the idea of an electric side-by-side in winter. Unfortunately for them, Polaris already thought about using the Kinetic in the winter, and today I'm going to show you just how much they thought about it. installing not just a winch and a plow, but a full cab system, including windshield wiper as well as an in-dash heater system that directly links to the 29.8 kilowatt-hour battery via a special Polaris high-powered bus bar plug-in kit. And to start it all off, we're going to get right into the guts of the Kinetic. Now, the heater system is a tidy little kit, and it's built for the Ranger specifically, but we're not going to use hot coolant from a gas engine. We're going to use electricity. Now, the high voltage bus bar kit is a very detailed installation, and we do recommend that you have your Polaris dealership do this kind of work. It's actually pretty interesting to see the internals of the Kinetic and see just how intricate and detailed the battery system is. Attaching the high voltage kit means that we can now hook up our in-dash heater, which requires the added power this high voltage kit provides. The in-cab heater and defrost kit has 8 built-in adjustable vents, as well as 3 fan speeds and an adjustable heat setting via a dash-mounted control. Now, this is focused on 3-season usability, but in the summer there's no reason you can't crank the fan on without the heat and also enjoy the benefits of added ventilation and air circulation. The install of this kit does require we pull the dash apart in a big way, but the instructions provided by Polaris are very clear and help us get it done efficiently and without confusion. Now, I am keeping much of the dash still pulled apart because I have a couple other parts that I'll need to be back under here for shortly. Now, I know that I said I was doing snow removal, and to do snow removal, that means a plow. But before we put a plow on, I gotta put a winch on this because, well, the plow needs a winch. And so my choice is the Polaris Pro HD 4,500 pound winch. Yes, it has rapid recovery, which spools the line back in 5 times faster than the competition after use, but why I really like the Polaris HD winches for this Ranger is the easy pre-wired contactors and 30-minute installation. I mean, I don't have to spend all day pulling half the front end off to fit up brackets and stiffeners. The Polaris built-in mount even has hangers on it, so it'll sit right where it's supposed to, and you don't even need to fight holding it into place to get your bolts started. It's really smart, pre-wired, and has the rapid recovery feature as well as the auto stop feature, so you don't bind up your synthetic cable. Now, the next obvious step is to put the plow on, but we're gonna put that off to the side for right now because this roll cage needs to get cabbed up. Polaris calls their heavy-duty cab components Pro Shield, and they're referenced as such to show you that they all work together to create a tight-fitting, sealed cab. Right up front, we have the full glass windshield. I'm a fan of full glass because it really is the most scratch-resistant and durable. This glass is also shatterproof, 360-degree gasket sealed, and is ready for the windshield wiper kit, which yes, I am installing, because we all know how frustrating it is to be in a heated cab with snow melting on the windshield and not have any way to wipe it. The wiper system works with a bunch of different Polaris windshields and features a dash-mounted switch that taps into the standard pulse bar system and is an easy install through the pre-drilled roll bar wiring holes. The kit also includes a washer bottle under the hood that's easy to access. So the next step is to continue sealing up the cab, and I'm gonna do that with yet another glass panel, but one behind me. Also, being a Pro Shield cab component, this lock and ride rear panel is again 360-degree gasketed and also greatly reduces cab noise. It's tempered as well for safety and has the best impact and scratch resistance. Up top, I'm putting on the 360-degree gasket seal lock and ride poly sport roof that's lightweight but Pro Shield certified to work with our other components to keep the elements out and you comfortable inside. Now, the final step to this cab, yeah, it's doors, but these aren't just any doors. These are Polaris Pro Shield doors. And what does that mean? Well, it means that they're pretty cool because Polaris takes a lot of pride in them. Opting for manual crank windows, not electric, these doors, once fitted up initially, are very easy to install and likewise remove in the heat of the summer, with no wires to unclip or worry about. The automotive feel of these doors is very evident. They're solid and strong and feature a 1-inch tube steel interior with special laminated safety glass. The interior is lined with a soft touch TPE liner that helps it feel more comfortable but also keeps sound reduced. The interior of the doors have easy to use hand cranks and door latches as well as built-in storage pockets. Like all Pro Shield components, these doors are also 360-degree gasketed to keep the elements out and the heat in. And they also have accessory door color panels that you can add to keep the look of your Ranger in theme instead of just being big black doors. We use the camo panel and it really does add a level of integration that most doors seem to lack. Now, speaking of integration, I also wanted to increase my safety, especially when blowing snow. So adding the door-mounted side view mirrors was the perfect option. Built for these doors, the beefy mirrors will fold out of the way of bumps and offer great rearward visibility no matter when you use them. Now, of course, we have to put a plow on, and because this is a Polaris build, we're gonna use a Glacier Plow. And as an installer, that makes me one happy camper. And why is that, you might ask? Well, Polaris Glacier Plows go on easier than a Kelsey jersey at a Swift concert. The tabs to accept the plow frame are already on your Ranger vehicle from the factory, and all you have to do is mount your blade of choice to your plow frame. Now, we opted for the 72-inch steel blade because I like the durability of steel when really needing to use a plow hard, and this Kinetic, with its extra battery weight, will be ready to push some serious snow. The The blade mounts up to the push frame easily, and then from there we just drive onto the frame, connect to our winch line, and everything clicks into place. Any area we have to interact with is color-coded for future removal and install, and the system even comes with a kickstand to leave the plow set up for connecting back up, so you don't have to leave it on all winter long if you don't want to. Now, I might be a little bit early for snow, but I know that this Kinetic Ranger is ready for whatever winter throws my way. Because I used pure Polaris parts and accessories, everything went on smooth and easy, and I didn't need to run to the store for any extra nuts and bolts. And that is a win-win for winter preparation. Make sure you tune into YouTube further on to see us using this during this winter.